Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Zay News Live, and welcome to this English news edition coming up in the next 20 minutes. The Constitutional Council delivered a justified opinion regarding the draft revision of the Constitution. Plus, FCE Forum to make economic partnership with France to expand strongly in the African market. And later on in our news program, UN Syria Envoy Staffan de Mistura to start talks in Geneva without opposition. Hello there, wherever you are, and thanks for joining us. First, in our top stories, the Constitutional Council delivered yesterday, Thursday, a justified opinion regarding the draft revision of the Constitution, saying that it does not affect the general principles governing the Algerian society, the human and citizens' rights and liberties, nor does it affect in any way the fundamental balance of powers and constitutional institutions. Lamia Ashush for more details.
The Constitutional Council delivered on Thursday a justified opinion regarding the draft revision of the Constitution initiated by the President of the Republic, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, saying that it does not in any way affect the general principles governing the Algerian society and the human and the citizens' rights and liberties, nor does it affect in any way the fundamental balance of powers and constitutional institutions. An extraordinary parliamentary session will be next held, presided by the head of the Council of the Nation, in order to vote for a bureau of MPs that will be in charge of the Constitution Amendment project, which is the latter's first step towards being ratified. Right afterwards, the project will be submitted to a parliamentary vote, requiring the approval of 3/4 of the registered members of parliament in order to be passed in the official gazette and thus ratified. Otherwise, the project will be put through a popular referendum. Only one step is thus left for the Constitution Amendment project, a step entirely dependent on the parliament, whose majority is pro-government, thus more inclined to pass it, avoiding a popular referendum as wished by the opposition.
Always with the same fire, following the Constitutional Council's justified opinion regarding the draft revision of the Constitution, the government has somehow succeeded in its first test to pass the amendment project, thus entering into a crucial political phase ahead of the implementation of the reforms therein, which constitute the real challenge for the state. Lamia Ashush again.
In line with the will of the state, the Constitutional Council's decision was indeed in favor of the President's recent Constitution amendment, which is considered by pro-government figures as inclusive and complete, with a futuristic vision and a consensual content able to bring about the necessary change. This view stresses the importance of the passing of the country's most important document through Parliament's 2 chambers, the thing that most opposition representatives refuse, being pessimistic about the draft constitution and the fact that it is not being passed through a pivotal popular referendum. The upcoming stage, although preceded by different political reactions, will be one of serious discussions about the amendment and its repercussions on the set of changes that will affect several laws, especially those concerning the hot political debate between the state's intentions and its opposers' ambitions. Preserving what has been achieved and materializing what has been promised needs mechanisms which constitute a real test for the government, while the opposition patiently awaits for a solution to what it calls a political crisis. Others think that the real challenge will begin when the practical texts of the new constitution will be implemented, considering the eventful context in which the amendment was suggested and consequently presented. What is most important in this context is the civil state project and talks of a second republic, between those who cheer for the new constitution and those opposed to its shortcomings. Meanwhile, Algeria's average citizen only hopes for stability and financial security in the midst of all this political mayhem.
activities economically in the African continent. The FCU Forum is taking its first step towards a partnership with France to empower the national production, step out of hydrocarbons dependence, and thus launching strong economic expansion in Africa. Hints Menelas.
Breaking into the African market, the dream that Algerians has had for decades, in light of the limited national production and the absence of a knowledge of the continent's economics. On this basis, Algeria has embarked on its first step towards the continental expansion, a goal that can only be achieved through the promotion of national production.
We need to establish this partnership to help develop our products and as a result impose ourselves on the African market. Our aim is to bring either French investors coming to Algeria or Algerian investors willing to invest in the international market. And this is to be ready to invade the African market, which has long been the goal of FCE President Mr. Ali Haddad. This requires a lot of efforts in investing.
Africa has long lived on the impact of the European economic policy, devoted to the conflict between the major powers on the bounties of the richest continents of the world in terms of natural resources. Therefore, the competition for the region's markets requires the adoption of a business partnership as a means to invade the investment field in sub-Saharan region.
La France et l'Algérie sont aujourd'hui un duo.
France and Algeria represent today a unique duo globally. No partner is as close to France as Algeria, whether we agreed or not. Historically, politically, or economically, the two countries share a common future. Their futures are intertwined. Both have to work on a more constructive future, regardless of the past.
La France et l'Algérie ont un avenir commun.
Algeria's 1,000-mile step towards Africa has begun, with the will to diversify its partners and get rid of its dependence on hydrocarbons, an attempt that remains dependent on the contribution of economic powers in the continent, which raises the question as to Algeria's crossing towards African markets. Will it inevitably go through Paris's experience in economic history in international markets?
In the cooperation track now, despite being geographically close, the Algerian-Sudanese commercial exchanges are witnessing a surprising drop from being $11 billion to $3 billion in $3 billion. To this effect, an Algerian business delegation is taking part in the International Fair of Khartoum in order to find ways to bolster the economic ties. Mustafa Assouk.
The International Fair of Khartoum is regarded as one of the leading business counters in the African continent, where numerous foreign and local exhibitors showcase their latest inventions. Algeria, as a potential commercial partner to Sudan, was present with a large delegation headed by the president of the Algerian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Mohamed El Aid Ben Amr.
Ce que produisent les Soudanais et ce que les Soudanais consomment et ce qu'ils souhaiteraient aussi importer d'Algérie. Là, on voit qu'il y a un besoin dans différents produits, que ce soit dans les produits agroalimentaires.
The reason behind our visit is to have an idea on what our fellow Sudanese produce and consume. We already know that they have needs in several sectors, including food industry, cosmetics, and agricultural products.
De plusieurs pays, et là, il y a l'opportunité est là pour tout ce qui est production de viande, que ce soit bovine ou ovine.
As for our needs, we're willing to import meat from Sudan since they are closer.
Évoluer en ce sens et trouver des mécanismes pour pouvoir importer.
This international fair will undoubtedly help boost the bilateral ties and economic links in various sectors between the two nations. Its officials previously expressed their willingness to increase the commercial exchanges. The latter is also an opportunity for the Algerian enterprises to showcase their products and invade the African markets.
The Khartoum International Fair is an opportunity for us as a pharmaceutical company to showcase our products for potential African investors as well as showcasing our future products.
Despite that Algeria and Sudan are geographically close, the commercial exchanges are gradually going downward, from being $11 billion to $3 billion in 2014.
And now I'm joined live by Mustafa, who is going to present this week's highlights. What do you have for us, Mustafa?
Thanks, Nadia. So in this week's Harvest, some highlights at national and international scenes. And we kick off with some national politics. For the first time in Algerian history, a Minister of Mujahideen goes on a working visit to France to discuss various pending files with French officials. The Minister, Mr. Tayyip Zitouni, previously stated that his visit to France will be devoted to three main files: the archives, the Algerian missing during the National War of Liberation, and the compensation for victims of nuclear testing conducted in Regan. Thus, a special joint commission will be set up and should meet on the 11th of February to study the issue. And on a different event, Prime Minister Abdelmalek Salel, during a working visit to the southern province of Lagawat, revealed a series of important measures and decisions implemented by his government for the diversification of the national economy. And he stated that Algeria has the expertise, the capacities and potentials to overcome the economic crisis. And in the same context, the Algerian premier revealed the official launching of the much-awaited biometric ID card. As for economic major events, the most influential economic body in the country, also known as the Algerian Businessman Forum FCE, inaugurated the forum's new office in the eastern province of Boridij, which, thanks to its industrial success, is now nicknamed the capital of electronics. The office comes as part of the forum's extension program to reach all national businessmen and better all links and ways of coordination between local authorities and Algerian businessmen. Still with the same forum, Mr. Ali Haddad spoke on the sidelines of the inauguration ceremony about the pre-draft consultation. In fact, he hailed the initiative and said it was the first step toward elimination of demonizing the private sector. The chairman hailed the measures taken by the government, especially those related to the non-distinction between the private and public sectors. Always in economy, but in the field of information, technology and communication. The Algerian government is at last willing to focus on these advantage areas, which will be soon covered with wireless communication services. The relevant ministry chose 3 out of 4 operators to put the project into practice and provide internet and phone services to 79 remote areas in 28 different provinces as a pilot project. The process will be co-financed by State Treasury through a special fund and the operators in order to overcome the problem of commercial viability in these isolated areas which lack high population density. Moving on to international bilateral relations and cooperations, a high-level delegation of Algerian businessmen headed by Mohamed El-Eid Ben Ammar, president of the Algerian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, was on a working visit to the Sudanese capital with a view to explore partnership and cooperation opportunities. It's worth mentioning that the first Algerian-Sudanese business session is set to kick in the next few days. And with this, we come to the end of our Harvest of the Week. Back to you, Nadia.
Thank you so much, Mustafa Azzoug. And now we move to other world developments. The first Syria peace talks for 2 years were a complete failure before they started on today, Friday, a Western diplomat said after the United Nations announced it would press ahead with them despite an opposition boycott. UN Envoy Staffan de Mistura has invited the Syrian government and an opposition umbrella group to Geneva for proximity talks in which they would meet in separate rooms. But so far, the main opposition High Negotiations Committee has refused to attend, insisting it wanted an end to airstrikes and sieges of towns before talks can start. The boycott defies Washington, which has urged the opposition to take up the historic opportunity for talks without preconditions. A suicide bomb and gun attack on Shia worshippers has killed at least 4 people in eastern Saudi Arabia. The assault on the Imam Rida Mosque in the eastern province town of Mahasin, a mixed Sunni Shia district, wounded at least 18 people. There was no claim of responsibility. The attack came less than a month after Sunni-ruled Saudi Arabia executed 47 people, most of them from Al-Qaeda terror group, convicted of terrorist attacks, as well as the Shia cleric Nimr al-Nimr. World Health Organization officials announced today, Friday, that more than 4 billion or 4 million people in Brazil are affected by Zika virus, a new disease which is spreading in South America. And Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff has called on the whole of Brazilian society to help combat the spread of this deadly virus, which has been connected to birth defects. Siam Sado.
World Health Organization officials announced today, Friday, more than 4 million people in Brazil are hit by Zika virus, a new incurable disease which is spreading in South America. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff has called on the whole of Brazilian society to help combat the spread of this deadly virus, which has been linked to birth defects. In fact, the virus is transmitted by the sting of an infected mosquito, causing strong fever, headache and rashes. And if it infects pregnant women, it can lead to birth brain defects in their children. Even worse, World Health Organization said there is no paid diagnosis test to detect the virus in a newly infected person, so the virus spreads quickly. On Tuesday, President Barack Obama voiced his concerns for his risks Zika virus can extend to the United States, calling for more research into ways to stop the spread of the disease. The latter held an emergency meeting on Monday to decide the possibility for declaring the situation public. The current viral outbreak was first reported in May 2015 in Brazil, when the first confirmed cases was disclosed. World Health Organization said today that one reason for the rapid spread is that both people and mosquitoes have no immunity to the virus that is new to the region. Brazilian researchers found that the genetic profile of the virus is linked to the Zika virus found in French Polynesia, a group of islands in the South Pacific.
It really does take a village to raise the next generation. That's according to news research published in Science that claims new stars can be born from a combination of massive ancient star cluster with the help of gas from host galaxies. Siam Sado again.
In outer space, it really does take a village to raise the next generation. That's according to new research. New stars can be born from a combination of massive ancient star clusters with the help of gas from host galaxies. The study's authors say taking gas from star formation is a new concept that provides a more nuanced understanding of how galaxies take shape and evoke. Researchers from Beijing University said that globular star clusters have turned out to be much more complex than we previously thought them to be. Globular clusters are spheres made up of millions of stars, packed tightly together by gravity, that orbit the outer edges of galaxies. They are characterized by their age. Such clusters can date back 11 billion years, making them some of the oldest known structures of the universe. For a long time, scientists believed new stars and clusters were born in a single baby boom, using material from within an aging cluster, and that multiplied generations of stars in a single cluster would not occur. About a decade ago, astronomers found that the older globular clusters, on the order of 10 billion years old, were host to younger stars, according to Space.com, but they did not know why or how. This new funding indicates that the evolution of a star cluster is much more complicated than what we thought. There must be frequent interactions between star clusters and the environment.
Way back to Algeria with handball news. Algeria's handball team qualified for the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations 2016, lost to their Tunisian counterparts 18-27. The Tunisian team had a strong performance in comparison to that of Algeria team, who didn't demonstrate full capacity. Many remarks were made concerning the team's defense and attacks strategy. Head luck to Algeria. And finally, TF Baya exhibition is a collective exhibition of fine arts that give the opportunity to various Algerian artists to display their most beautiful paintings and different styles of plastic art. It is also a chance to discover new talents.
When art and creativity are combined, the beauty embodied in them awakens. Baya's Guests, or TF Baya, a collective fine arts exposition, brought together different schools and significant names of this field, making the place a melting pot of talents and artistic works. Ismail Shan chose nature's charm and its mesmerizing views from a time far, far away, bringing them back to life with his own magical touch. Simplicity is the factor that Nuruddin Hammous has chosen to showcase his art's peculiarity embodied through his paintings.
What our ancestors used to create when making poetry, I'm using it in my paintings. I even included ancient works to prove that you don't need advanced fabrics to paint. You can work with whatever you have.
Expressive art was also present through the works of painters Jawad Qassouma and Amal bin Ghazala.
كل لوحة عندها قصة وعندها عنوان تاعها.
Every painting has its own story. I use a lot of colors and I'm mainly into figurative abstracts art, where I embody someone and each painting has a name.
We try to attract the attention of people to our paintings. I try to create something new through forms and faces to think outside the box.
Before being an exhibition for plastic art, Baya's Guests is first and foremost a breakthrough of artists, where every painting brings onlookers into a place where the magic happens.
Before we wrap up, these are our main headlines. The Constitutional Council delivered a justified opinion regarding the draft revision of the Constitution. FCE Forum to make an economic partnership with France to expand strongly in the African market. And UN Syria Envoy Staffan de Mistura to start talks in Geneva without opposition. The end of our English news edition, brought to you live from Zay News channel. For more news, visit our website. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.